Alright, fish guys, wanted to give you guys a little update here. Um, yeah, we got blackworms for days. Basically, the little 5 gallon that I had set up in this little corner in between these, or 10 gallons, excuse me, I had set up right in here, was basically just crashing. Not enough water volume. The worms were dying off, turning to slime, stressing each other out. It was a huge disaster to say the least. Now they're doing perfectly fine. I got them stabilized. You got a few patches here or there will die off, and it's like a slime biofilm that they produce when stressed. Also, it decomposed down to pretty much that like gritty, granular crap you see in the background down there. Yeah, so pretty much got that all taken care of. Lots and lots of water changes on these guys. Using my RODI water, chilled it down, real cold to get these guys comfortable, as you can see there. Happy as a clown with their heads hanging out, trying to get all the good stuff out there and water and all that good stuff. Well, that's what they look like when they break down. If you see that white one right there on the sponge filter, it's like translucent nastiness. Oh my god. Freaking disgusting. Anyways, they're all good now. So we got those figured out and moved. Yeah, after we got that big tank set up, that's just a 20 long, whatever. We have the 55 gallon that we had moved in here. That's going to be now set up where that air conditioner was. We've got the flower horn. He's hanging out inside of here. Or I should say she is. Really pissed her off and did a little water change slash remodel of her tank. As you can see, that filter's looking a little dirty back there. You see it on the top. But to say the least, none any further. Our goldfish are like freaking out. They got no light. Used to their light. They like their light. There's light. Smallies hanging out with the big ones. So spare 5. Oh, cichlids hanging out over there. But yeah, so that's the fish room for now. Backyard stuff, pond, and other blackworm culture tank is still going. Like I said, none of these worms are not for like resale or nothing like that. I'll probably go through all of these worms right here within the next week and a half, without a doubt. The basics to keeping these alive are pretty simple. All you got to do is just give them some nice, fresh, clean water. They recommend spring water or distilled water. Essentially, you do not want any chlorine or chloramines in your water. If you use tap water, typically all municipal water supplies have those added to it. The chlorine is highly toxic to blackworms. It'll just turn them into that pretty much on the sponge filter, and that will be what's left of a blackworm in about 2 minutes of being in some nasty toxic water to them. And I say nasty toxic water because chlorine is toxic to them, so that's the only reason it makes it nasty. It's great for us because it helps keep our water sanitary, so no problems there. But for a small biological life like the blackworm, it's like the death sentence. And yeah, the tank still needs to clear up, a little cloudy obviously, so then water changes. Yeah, feeding of these guys is pretty simple. You can give them some crushed down fish flakes. Is pretty simple, what I've read everywhere else. The gentleman where I get these from has a pretty good solid regimen set up where he's feeding them up pretty good. How they multiply is through segmentation. Segmentation occurs through either wedging themselves through something in the media, like say a rock, and then between that rock they get pinched, and one half becomes a top and the other half becomes a bottom. The worm will regenerate the opposing end or the missing end. So, for instance, if it gets its tail chopped off, the tail section will grow a head and become a whole new worm, and the original head section will grow a tail and become a whole new worm. So you have two worms there. I don't know if it works if, for instance, you chop a worm into 3 sections and the middle section, having no head or tail, will die, or if it'll grow both. That I have no idea. I guess I could try it, but I was gonna say I'm not like a scientist or nothing like that, but what the hell is this YouTube? Everybody likes to see some weird shit, so if you're wondering how do you care for these guys, you've always seen people advertising them, telling them how they make a gigantic nasty mess. Well, they are right. These things could be the worst nightmare. They make the most foulest stench in the world when they go sour, and I say sour in the sense that they get stressed and start dying when decomposing. When they decompose, it is just horrid. I mean, I had to bleach my bucket and bleach my little 1-gallon pitcher that I was using to do the water changes with, just to get the smell out of there. And it's that cold. And you can see how they all look red in here, and I believe that's just a product of what they're eating. Most times they're known as blackworms. You can kind of see a little black on them every now and then, on some of them. That looks completely red, but you can see the darker ones inside of there without a doubt. There's a good one right there, I guess. Anyway, well, this is my culture. It's doing its business. This will be fed at a rate of about 3.5 to 4 ounces a day. He's gonna come out of here. 4 ounces is probably, that's probably about 2 ounces right there in that little corner. That's a good sized chunk right there. It's a little bigger than it really is, I guess you could say. If you figure it's 20 long, that's a good 2 ounces for sure. maybe even a little bit more, because it's packed in there. And I have another club size. About in here, about 2 pounds of worms, more or less, at this given time. I'm thinking probably kick it up to about 4 pounds. I'm thinking, if you just figure, look at the available real estate on the floor for them to spread out into. Another 2 pounds here, or another, yeah, a pound here, pound here, pound and a half here, pound here, whatever. It's all the same. Filtration, 3 sponge filters, just because these guys started making a hell of a mess when I first got them set up into here, because they started crashing, like I said, in the 10-gallon tank. Once they start going south, it's hard to bring them back. You gotta get a lot of water, fresh water through them, rinse them down, keep them calm, get the stress off them. How do you keep the stress off them? Put them in the dark, cool them down, slow them down, cool and slow, cool and slow. They reproduce just fine in warm tanks. Actually speed up the reproduction in warm tanks, and they can live in warm tanks. But when they do get warm, they're more susceptible to die-offs, because the temperature fluctuation is less, or it's closer to the edge where they die. So for instance, if your community tank and your freshwater tank is set as 82 degrees, they're gonna live just fine in there and reproduce. But if you stress them out at 82 degrees, they're gonna have a bigger reaction than they would have if you stressed them out at, say, 65 degrees or even 72 degrees. So 10 degrees difference would make a huge amount of change in the amount of waste or die-off that you're going to get from stressing them out. And if you thought that one little tiny one was bad, you'll see thousands and millions of those little decayed gill strings, it seems like, when you stress them out. But yeah. So, real quick, keep them cold. People can store them in the refrigerator. cover them with shallow water in a little container that's sealed. If not, they'll try to crawl out and you'll have worms all over your tank. Actually, like this little container back here. So you can store them in one of these. Put your worms in it, you know. Get a little bit of water on top of them. Smack your lid on top. Poke a couple holes for air. Throw it in your fridge, and you're good to go. They'll be just fine for, you know, a week or 2 weeks. If you rinse them out, depending on how clean they are when you put them in, rinse them out every couple days, like 3-4 days. You could do it every day, but if you don't have the same water conditions that you're storing them in, they're gonna stress out. So for instance, if you keep a jug of distilled water inside your refrigerator in the same spot that you keep your worms at, and you use that jug of distilled water to rinse your worms with, the water is going to be at the same temperature that the worms are stored at. So they're not going to realize that, hey, something's changing. They're going to realize that, hey, we're getting, you know, fresh water. It's not going to be filled with all the contaminants, pollutants, or waste, or nitrogen, or nitrates, whatever that's broken down into their tiny water column is going to be gone. So they're going to be like, oh wow, that's kind of cool. They'll recognize that. They might jump. Kind of hard to make them jump, but they do like contract and shoot out, so to say, as far as like their movement goes. When you spook them, and the less that you can, or the more you can prevent of that, the better. And keeping or storing your water in the same place that you keep your worms in the fridge allows you to prevent that shock. And if you don't feel like getting a gallon jug of bottled water or anything, get tap water, put an air stone in it, let it bubble in the sun for a little tiny bit, and I say a little tiny bit, like maybe not even 2 hours. Then throw it in your refrigerator and do it that way. The sun will help break down the chlorine inside your water. That's sodium hypochlorite. That's the active ingredient inside of bleach, or the thing that makes, you know, sanitation stuff, you know, free of bacteria and germs. And then throw that in the water or the refrigerator, and you should be good as a supplement. And when you see these clumps, like I said, of fuzz, that's like the mucus stuff that they produce when they're extremely stressed out and some are dying. It's like the freaking plague. It's so goddamn nasty. Stay away from that stuff. It's gross. Not even worth to try to pull it out. I'll eat it eventually, but yeah. So that's 13 minutes of rambling. I hope you like the update on a whole bunch of these blackworms. Have a good day.